Hey guys, do you work in emergency medicine? An absolutely crazy and intense environment where you see things every single day that most people don't see their entire lifetimes? You feel burned out, unappreciated, like there's nobody you can talk to about the struggles and the things that you see every day? If that's you, I want to let you know that you are not alone. Today I have a bunch of real professionals with real careers in emergency medicine that can relate to the struggles you have on a daily basis. My mission with this new format is to share stories that educate, encourage, uplift, and maybe just that you can relate to that aren't that uplifting. I mean, a lot of our stories in emergency medicine are not uplifting stories, right? But I want you to know you're not alone, and I want you to not just survive working in emergency medicine, but thrive in emergency medicine. Maybe you're a brand new EMT, paramedic, nurse, and you got criticized by a physician today, and that made you super frustrated your whole shift. You're driving home, that's all you can think about. Maybe you missed a lot of IVs today or had a super challenging patient you had to deal with. If so, this show is for you. My guests are from every walk of emergency medicine, and they're here not because they have it all figured out and they're perfect at this job. It's because they actually have a desire to help you. By the end of this episode, I hope you feel encouraged and feel like you're not alone and realize that you can succeed in emergency medicine regardless of what level of care you provide. You can leave your shift without feeling beaten down, burned out, and discouraged every single day. I personally have struggled with burnout, discouragement, frustration many times throughout my 15 years in emergency medicine. My name is Aaron. I'm the host of Practical EMS. I've been an EMT, paramedic, and now ERPA. If that sounds at all of interest to you guys, please stay tuned. I'm going to bring in my guests and we are going to have an awesome show. First question I have or prompt here is that left an impact on you, so maybe use that to guide you.
The baby in an oven.
Okay.
Yeah. This was years ago. I had to pick up a shift, because poor as hell. So me and my partner at the time, we had to go an hour that way for abdominal pain. We're just sitting there complaining the whole time.
The call was for abdominal pain.
Yeah, that was what it was. So we get there and the volunteer fire department came out and they're like, yeah, this woman has abdominal pain, but it just smells weird in that house. And she was like kind of green in the face. And this was the first burnt body I've ever smelled. So never forget it, but I can't fucking explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So dude, we get in there and I almost just threw up. My whole stomach just churned. And this woman is sitting there she's throwing up in her stomach, blah, blah, blah. So we're sitting there, doing the stuff, assessments, the usual thing. And then, like I said, I'm just getting green. My partner's sitting there. She actually had ammonia caps because she. So one of the volunteers left, and then it was it wasn't a scream, but it was this panic yelp kind of deal. So we go in the kitchen, and then, the oven at that time was closed, and we're looking at her, and she's just shell-shocked, just staring at the oven. So the partner I was with comes over, and we're all like, what's going on? So then the other volunteer opened the oven, and it took me a second to try to figure out what the fuck I was looking at, It was literally a 2-year-old.
Oh my gosh.
Just burnt. So that one's always stuck with me.
Yeah.
But
do you get calls that take you right back?
No.
That's good.
For some reason, a few times at Walmart or something, I'll see an oven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awful.
But yeah, that was the one that still sticks with me. So, and after investigations, they found out that she's the one that put the kid in the oven.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How have you processed that and healed from that? That's something that most people will never see in their life. Most people couldn't handle. How do you heal from that? How do you process that?
So after it happened, we talked to the supervisors and that stuff. I went to therapy at least 3 times a week.
Yeah.
At that time, that's when I started becoming an alcoholic. But I guess just over the years, I leaned off the alcohol and then just talking about it. Every time I do talk about it, I'll start to cry.
Yeah.
But it's gotten a lot easier, But But like I said, sadly, that's the only one that's ever really stuck with me. And then just leaning off the alcohol, I still see a therapist to this day, and talking to her about it. Like I said, it's made it easier, but every time I talk about it, I'll end up choking up anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be worried about you if it didn't.
Yeah.
For sure.
The nightmares went away after a while. But yeah, no, just like, Casey was saying, like, I can't describe the smell, but I literally, if I smelt it, I could remember it again.
Oh yeah.
So that was that.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons I asked you to be here is the fact that you are very open about your struggles and how you've been talking with a therapist. And that's a pretty traumatic scene. I don't think I have anything that would ever top that. But you're not the only person that's seen something just absolutely tragic like that. And so I think it's important that people understand in this field, like, you're going to see things like that.
Yeah.
And you got to get your mind right if you're going to be able to be there for another patient after something like that. So that's one reason why I asked you to be here, is I know that you're really good about that. And I think that's really good for people to hear. Because there's not a moral behind that story. There's not anything you learned.
Yeah.
But it is really, really shitty. And I think it's just helpful to know that you're not alone. There's other people that have seen this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It illustrates what we can run into, for sure.
Yeah.
And thankfully it doesn't happen every day. Most of the days are boring,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's just, thankfully those things don't happen every day. They just don't. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've always told all the medical students and EMT students and whatnot that I work with, rest assured, a large percentage, if not all, of people who spend enough time in emergency medicine diagnostically will have what is termed PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, how do you stand mentally knowing you want to do this job, knowing that the upsides and the people you help versus the cases where it's just futile and absolutely going to beat you down emotionally, which is going to happen probably in some way,
Mm-hmm.
to that level or some level. How are you going to be prepared to continue to have hope and to want to go out there and look for the moments where you do help somebody versus just having to carry a burden that most people shouldn't or never will have to carry? I mean, it's a war scene for the most part, oftentimes in the field and in the ER. So, at some point, most of us that have done this long enough, either in the field or in the system, in the hospital, probably have some component of PTSD, whether we say it that way or not. It's pretty well established in the literature. We're going to be the people that see the things no one should have to see. So the question is, knowing that that's not going to be an everyday affair, do you think you have the mental capacity and the emotional wherewithal of who you are to be able to do that if it should occur to that extent, and continue on and be okay in your personal life and be okay on the job and go back for more, knowing there will be good days and great cases and things that you'll get to do to help people that others will never have the opportunity to do. But you need to do an assessment of who you are and what could happen to you in that kind of scenario, because truth be told, this is the place where that could happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not every day, as you said, which is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll get you. I've always thought that you have to find those few cases, like the true, like today I saved a life kind of case, which is also not an everyday case, obviously.
Yeah.
But when you have those, you hold on for dear life. Let those moments bring you to tears, because they're going to have to counterbalance the times where it's like, what just happened? What's the purpose? Why am I even, what are we doing to each other in this world kind of thing?
Yeah.
You got to hold on tight to those.
I think also on the other side of that is that there's some of those calls that we go on that really don't take a whole lot of brain power. It doesn't take a whole lot of, of paramedic skills or medical skills. One of the things that I wanted to talk about that really impacted me was a transfer.
Yeah.
I mean, really. And this was when I worked in Arizona, and my partner Sherrick and I went on a call for a transfer. It was to take a guy had cancer to the linear accelerator. There, we called it burn and return, right? So they go and get their radiation treatment, and we'd take them home. Well, when we got on scene, his wife met us outside, and she said, could you just do me a favor? The ambulance that came and picked him up yesterday, they treated him really poorly.
Yeah.
And the call that we went on was not in an area where we normally went on calls. And so it was Brand X that had been there the day before. And I told her, I said, rest assured, we're going to treat him like the king that he is.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And so we went in there. His name was Ed. And he had cancer, and he also had MS. So he was debilitated from that. Well, he made us pick him up every time that he went. We picked him up over a 6-month period. And it got to the point where he was in a nursing home, but we would pick him up. And one day we picked him up and he was just so upset. And I said, what is wrong? And he goes, there's a president that got elected several presidents ago. And he goes, we're just going to hell in a handbasket. Oh my God. And, you know, and he was just the biggest baseball fan. And he loved cowboys and Indians. He loved John Wayne, and come to find out that this guy was an opera singer. We picked him up one day.
Oh, that's cool.
He was pissed off. And I said, what's wrong with you, Ed? And he goes, it's Pavarotti's birthday. He goes,
I can't believe it.
He goes, if I didn't have MS, he goes, they wouldn't be celebrating Pavarotti's birthday. He said, and I'd heard recordings of him, and he's incredible. Stunning.
Yeah.
So anyway, we picked him up one day, and he was sad, and we took him over to the radiation therapy. And I said, what's wrong with you, Ed? And he goes, oh, my son's getting married. And I said, you don't want him to get married? And he goes, no, I'm not going to be able to go. And I said, well, where is it? I mean, by this time he's totally bedridden.
Yeah.
I said, well, where is it? And he goes, over here in Tempe. And I said, oh, okay. So we went outside, and we took him back over to the nursing home, and went downstairs, and I called my boss, and I said, listen, I said, this guy needs to go. I said, it's on a day when Sherrick and I aren't working. I said, our ambulance has nobody in it. It's just sitting there. I said, we want to take him. And the boss said, absolutely. He said, and we're going to pay you to do it.
Yeah.
I said, no, we don't want anything. He goes, no, we're going to pay you because insurance and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so the next day we pick him up and we take him. We put him in the accelerator, and we go outside and we tell his wife what we're going to do. And so he says, or we go back in there, and I said, hey, Ed, I said, Sherrick and I want to go to that wedding. And he goes, why? And Sherrick goes, free food.
Hell yeah.
He goes, I said, I'll travel 600 miles for free food, And so anyway, he goes, well, okay, I'll get you an invitation. And I said, okay. And I said, but we're not going to really know anybody. So we need somebody to go with us. Would you go with us? And he goes, oh, I can't. I can't sit up that long. And I said, no. We're going to pick you up in the ambulance. And he goes, oh, well, we could never afford that. And I said, listen, my company insists. And if you don't want to get us in trouble, you're going to do it. You're going to accept it.
Get the right.
So he starts crying.
Yeah.
He goes, I love you guys. I just love you guys. And all the texts were crying and everything. And so, the time comes and we pick him up. We take him to the wedding, and he stayed on that stretcher and just had the best time. And, we took him back. He got tired. We took him back. And I moved up here, and about, I don't know, it was a couple months later, he ended up passing away.
Yeah.
And it hurt me that I wasn't able to be there, and stuff. So my friend Sherrick got married about 6 months later. And so went to the wedding, and I'm sitting there, and here's Ed's family sitting at the wedding with my friend Sherrick. And so after the wedding, we actually sat at the reception with the family, and his son that got married, he goes, you have no idea what you meant to my dad. Just that one thing. And so when I got back up here, I wrote a story about it, and it went nationwide in our nationwide newsletter. And one of the guys, you might know him, he does a cartoon, used to work here in town, was working in the system at the time, and he and his partner, they read that story, and that pushed them to form what is now at the operation here and across the country, Sentimental Journey,
Oh,
where
shit.
we take people towards the end of their life or whatever, and we take them and we do stuff with them and take them to different places. So just that, and it wasn't a EMS call necessarily, but it's, you know, and that's been 30 years ago,
Yeah.
almost 35 years ago.
Yeah. Like,
and
go ahead.
it's just, you know, and it builds and it just has kept going. And I think, Steve and Kim for that. Kim's since passed away, but for carrying that on, and it all came from Ed. So
yeah, man, stuff like that, like to me, is more important than anything else.
It makes the job absolutely worth it.
Yeah,
absolutely worth it.
It makes somebody
gets to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like it literally makes someone not feel like a patient anymore, that they're a person.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that is, in my opinion, just the most important thing, dude.
Yeah. Well, I've talked about this to Aaron before, is that, you know, people get upset because of, you know, all the drunk jerks that spit on you and stuff. Yeah. And I always tell my interns and my students that, you know, that's the price you pay. Mm-hmm. That is the price you pay to get to that one patient that you absolutely make a difference for. Yeah. And they make a difference in your life.
They do. The people you meet.
You carry them forever.
Yeah. Even not directly on the story path. I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to get back to more stories. But that you know, the people we get to meet, I'm not a real people person. I have very small. My wife calls me a introverted extrovert. Yeah. Like she'll bring you to the party and be like, "You just looked amazing. You made everybody laugh for 20 minutes, and all you were thinking was, can we flip and go home?" I don't like being around a lot of people. I'll always have like one or two good friends for years. Not a big community guy, which is kind of backwards for a Christian. But the whole community thing stresses me out. Yeah. But the people we get to meet will change you. Yeah. Like it doesn't even have to be anyone you worked on or did anything for. It doesn't have to be a call. It doesn't have to be like floating through hospital halls. The things you'll do, you'll rotate in different places for your education and whatnot, right? The people you'll sit down. I've met the end of multiple World War II vets. Yeah. Right? The end of that entire generation. The stories they'll sit and tell you as a young person, you'll sit there and just go, what? You did what? You're who? You walked on Normandy Beach. You have to go look up the history sometimes because it's so far out of your generation. You carry those stories for the rest of your life. The things that people will break down in those moments and open up to you when you're just the student in the corner or the doctor or the paramedic, and you find yourself just with your mouth shut and your ears wide open. We meet the people that you read about and see on TV and that have authored books on things that you're like, man, these people really exist. We meet them and hear their stories sometimes. For sure. You don't even have to be on the job to be impacted by the people you meet because of this job. Or you tell somebody at a gathering what you do because they ask every time. Whether you shy away from it or not, it comes out what you do for a living. The stories that people will tell you anyway that sometimes will change who you are and that you can hold on to. Those moments can even motivate and carry on your career. It's nuts. The opportunity for doing this job is just the opportunity to be changed for the better and to meet people that'll change your life is astounding. I don't think it exists anywhere in any other business.
Absolutely. Yeah. All of this stuff that anybody hears today is just our opinion only. It does not reflect any agencies we work for, hospitals we work for, any companies we work for. It's just our opinions only. Like I said earlier, we've modified all these patient stories so that any resemblance to a real life patient is just coincidental. This is for educational and entertainment purposes only. There is no medical advice here, so do not use this as medical advice. Do not use this to diagnose any medical or healthcare related conditions.
You see the people too that you're talking about, World War II vets. I met one of the SR-71 pilots.
Right.
Shit.
And there weren't many.
Yeah.
You know, less than 100.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was also a U-2 pilot. So that brotherhood is even smaller.
That's wild.
And I always, when I have somebody like that, or like a World War II vet or whatever, I always tell the receiving nurse, tech, doctor, this is an American treasure here. talk to them.
Yeah, man.
They're a hero. This is what we're all about. And always let them know, to treat them with kid gloves. Not that they don't treat their patients with kid gloves, but this is special.
Yeah.
And take advantage of it because it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember, actually, like probably early on in my nursing career, we were boarding patients in the ER, which means they're admitted to the hospital, but they don't have a bed available upstairs. And I took over for this patient in the middle of the night, and the nurse gave me handoff, and she's like, he's really old. I don't know. He's just been sleeping, whatever. Like, it wasn't a very good handoff. And I go in there, and he's all cattywampus in his bed, and he looks so uncomfortable. He's not in a gown. And so I'm like I like to take time with my patients to make them comfortable. And so I got him in a gown. I'm getting him all situated. And yeah, he was a World War II vet. And I ended up spending like 45 minutes in his room.
Just talk, yeah.
Like, I called one of my coworkers and I said, hey, can you just watch my assignment? And I just sat by his bedside and I essentially just talked until he fell asleep. And I felt so honored by that. And I was like, that other nurse really missed out. Yeah. Like, what an honor to get to take care of him. Yeah, it was really special. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Your handoff was they're old and sleeping.
Yeah.
Legit. And you turn the corner and you're like, oh shit.
That's probably the whole assignment can be described with that.
Right. Anytime I hear a sign out that's like they're really, really old, they might be sick, but they're just sleeping, I immediately look at the monitor. I'm is there any activity there? When is the last time you checked on them? Not everything beeps when it should.
And then you hear this. It's not my patient. I just got clocked on. I just got off lunch. My first day.
I've only worked here for a day.
I've only worked here for a day.
I'm a traveler. Let me just go check on them, make sure they're breathing.
Yeah.
I will say ER nurses take a lot more responsibility for their patients.
In general, you got
We try to.
Yeah, for all the floor nurses listening or watching, this is probably not your part of the podcast.
Adam, I don't know if you told an impactful story.
Oh, yeah, gosh, man, you guys, it's if you do this long enough and in enough areas, like in the field and in the hospital, a lot of things go through your mind. A lot of people go through your mind. I'm going to shy away from. I'm going to give us a little breather from the ones that really kind of take away your sleep for a while. I will say, I do have a case not all too long ago that I will hold on to for the rest of my life, in a good way. You know, one of those rare moments where you actually come out of a room and go, "Oh my Lord, I think I just had my hands used to actually save a life." Like, people talk about these things, read books about these things, watch TV movies about these things. I think it just happened, kind of thing. Mm. You know, I not all that long ago, this is towards the middle of the COVID pandemic, fairly well at its height, towards when it was going to start tapering down a little bit. So, you know, COVID was still a variant that was very, very much deadly to a lot of different people. You didn't expect it to be, young and old, healthy and not healthy. You didn't really know what you were going to get. But I'm working at a fairly busy hospital system. Gosh, a lot of stories come to mind when you ask for stories all of a sudden, but good ones. But anyway, I'm working at a fairly late shift. No, it was a full overnight shift, and we're about halfway through it. So I'm guessing it was around midnight. And the place is kind of starting to slow down a little bit, luckily. And a gentleman who certainly should have come in by ambulance, amazingly, his wife drove him to the ER because they didn't live far away. And he showed up apparently to the front ER desk just ashen blue in a wheelchair, you know, mumbling and whispering. And they bypassed him, meaning no stopping at the front to register, just come straight back to a resuscitation bay. Something's not quite right. You know, the techs saw him at the front and were like, this dude looks like he's dead or on his way there. So let's just wheel him to the back. Yeah. So they're hollering down the hall, you know, they're like, hey, we're bypassing a patient to the resus bay. So I get called to this resuscitation bay and I see the guy coming down the hall in the wheelchair and his wife's kind of jogging with eyes real big, looking down at him and looking forward to see where we're going. And the tech is halfway jogging with the wheelchair and the guy is kind of tripoding, leaning forward on his arms. He's gray for sure. He's kind of guppy breathing a little bit and he's not old. I mean, he looks 45. And I'm like,
That's not
oh, that's not good. It better not be. Yeah. So, yeah, it better not be. So he rolls into this resuscitation bay and he can't hardly get himself out of the wheelchair onto the bed. So we all just pick him up, big fella, maybe 6 foot, 250 kind of guy, and we throw him onto the bed. And, I'm anchoring the bed up at about 45 degrees. I'm not sure what's going on here, but it's clearly either heart or lungs, and I don't know where to begin. And so we throw him on a face mask oxygen. That's 15 liters. I mean, that's a lot of air, right? So you can hear the thing wheezing away like a snake in the back of the room. And I'm watching his oxygen stats, and he's breathing like 40 to 50 times shallow a minute. And his stats show up on the screen at like 65%. And I'm like, this guy's going to die any minute here. What is going on? I've got no story. The wife's in a panic. He can't tell me anything. And he just says, can't breathe. And his wife says, hey, he's been sick for a couple of days. The whole family's tested positive for COVID. And then I hear her all of a sudden mumbling over all the nurses' noise and whatnot. I hear the word pneumothorax, and I went, what'd you just say?
Yeah.
Meaning dropped lung. And I said, what about a pneumothorax? And she says, oh, he's had one in the past. And I thought, well, that would fit this picture.
Yeah.
But what sense does all of this really make, right? And so I throw my stethoscope on his chest real quick, and between his little guppy breaths, I hear almost no air movement on one side. Unfortunately, I hear almost no air movement on the other side. And I'm like, this can't be happening, right? So we're working on 2 IVs. We're trying to get him on the monitor. His heart rate's like 160. His blood pressure sucks. It's palpable only. It won't read on the monitor. And I'm calling for the chest x-ray who's right down the hall, and I'm just yelling at him, I don't have an order. Just get in here and take a picture real quick, right? So they snap this picture that's got half the lungs on, half the lungs off of the monitor, and I just take a quick look, and there are no lungs on either side.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the problem. We have COVID and bilateral dropped lungs and tension physiology, and this guy's going to die. So the interesting part was he is, as it turns out in the future conversations I had with him, and his wife had mentioned this at some point while we're doing everything. It comes up as I'm setting everything up. He's a pastor. And I'll never forget, because I'm a Christian, and knowing that he was a pastor, it hit me really hard what he said next. He's in rough shape. You can tell he's starting to lose consciousness from hypoxia, and he's sitting up at 45 degrees, and I've got scalpels out and some lidocaine. I'm trying to decide, do I even have time to numb this guy? I'm about to just stab him in the side of the chest.
Yeah.
Like, if he goes unconscious, I'm just sticking a finger in his chest wall, and I'm right about there, and I'm trying to numb him up on both sides real quick to be kind. And he looks me in the eye, and he goes, save me.
Yeah.
And I thought, in my mind, a man of God who spends his entire life asking God for direction, praying for people, and knowing that God's got a plan for him, and knowing in his mind who the only one that saves is, just looked at me and said, save me. He's scared to death. And he's looking at me like I'm God. And part of me thought, I can't. So don't get your hopes up. And what happens if you fail? You guys believe in the same God. He just looked at you and said, save me. And if he dies, what am I going to do with that? And then that fleeting thought a second later went out the window. And as calm as I could be, I looked him in the eyes and I laughed. And I said, yeah, that's the plan. And the nurses all looked at me like, man, this guy's cocky. And I thought, well, what else can you be right now? Because he's either going to die or he's going to live. And I got about 30 seconds to figure it out. And I ain't nobody else here to help. So I numbed him as best I could, and I took a scalpel and stabbed it straight in between his 4th and 5th rib-ish on the right side with his arm above his head, and he felt some of it, and then I dug through the pleura with a big pair of Kellys, and he felt some of that, and I pried those Kelly clamps open and just let the air gush out, and I just stood there and looked him in the eyes and just watched. No chest tube ready. Everyone's trying to get stuff together for me. I was like, I'm going to need 2 chest tubes, a couple of tables, X, Y, and Z. I'm trying to gently speak to the nursing staff to keep them calm, to start putting trays together, but I got nothing. I'm standing there with a scalpel and a Kelly clamp, just letting all this air out. And as that right lung came up, his sats came up about 10%, and he's starting to calm down a little bit. I'm like, okay, we're making progress. I'm going to treat this like a trauma and just leave this open until I got time to come back to it. So I closed the Kelly clamps and left the wound completely open and walked over to the other side, and I said, I'm sorry, my man. We're going to do this one more time. And cut him open on the other side and just stood there and let all the air out. And as I walked back around to finger feed a chest tube into the right side, and he's sat in about 88%.
Progress.
He's on 12 to 15 liters, and he's talking to me. And his color's coming back, and I'm thinking, oh, Lord, like, this is one of those. You just saved a life. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, you better practice what you preach and give credit where it goes, because you better believe God's looking at you right now saying, I'm only using you, son. So it was a humbling experience. But this guy not only survived that night, obviously, it turns out he had 2 or 3 older kids. He was an author of several motivational books, a pastor at a sizable church. He contacted the company that we work for.
Thank you.
And wrote a letter to all of the staff and myself thanking us for saving his life and whatnot. And about 4 days later, I was getting off an evening shift and heard he was finally getting ready to get out of the ICU to the floor, and they were pulling his chest tubes and whatnot. I walked into his room upstairs. I'd never been upstairs in this particular hospital, and I went up to visit him. And when I walked in the door, I was wearing short sleeves, and I'm uniquely and quite a bit tatted up. And he looked across the room and he goes, I know that tattoo. I won't say what it is because that's identifying, I guess. But he said the scripture that was tattooed on my arm, and he goes, I know you. And I said, yeah, you probably do. And he goes, I don't remember much of that time. And I had a mask on and everything during COVID time and whatnot, because you're that doctor, aren't you? And I introduced myself and I told him, yeah, I'm him. And he goes, you saved my life. And we had an interesting conversation. I said, well, yes and no, really. I said, of all people, you know, all I did was a job. I don't save people. And I know you know that. And we had a very interesting philosophical and religious conversation. And he found me on social media and sent a couple messages about his motivational books and things. And he says he's writing one that's going to have this as part of his story. And can I use your identifying information and stuff too? And he was a very interesting guy, and his wife was super, super cool. Anyway, as my heart rate finally came down over the next few shifts, wondering what in the world was going to roll through the door next, I thought, there it is. That's one of those moments that I've got to tuck away in my mind and hold on ever so tightly to for all of the intoxicated individuals and the mental health individuals who need help, right? I'm not picking on anybody, but they're going to abuse the shit out of you while you're there. And you're going to say, I went to school for 20 years for this. It's okay. It's okay. You know, some of them you're going to help too. But in between that, you did. You just changed a life, and the wife's life and the kids' lives. Like, you did what you signed up for, and it doesn't happen every day. So just hold on tight to that. And talking about it at a moment like this, a couple years later, revives that feeling of, all right, I know why I'm here.
Yeah.
And whatever comes today and tomorrow, it's all right. Because look what happened. Who gets to do that, right? Who gets to do that? Ties is an honor. Yeah.
I want to ask you a question, if you've ever thought about it. So you did that, right? And you just said that he has a wife, kids. So do you ever think about the ripple effect of not just those people that he touches, but all the rest of those people that have read his books, are going to read the new book.
Right.
It boggles your mind to think about the number of people that you take care of and the number of people that you have some influence over because of what they do. You know, it just it boggles your mind.
Guys, I'm going to jump in here. That's the end of this episode, but we are going to continue this discussion with these same fine folks next week, so I hope you'll tune in. If you guys found this valuable, if you were encouraged by it, uplifted by it, or if it just makes it so you don't feel like you're so alone with the stuff that you have to struggle with every day, I hope you will go over to practicalems.com, join the email list for more encouraging and valuable information. I'll send you emails to let you know when the new content comes out. And of course, if you subscribe on your favorite podcast player, leave a 5-star rating and review. That is super helpful to allow me to do this. I don't make any money off of it, and it does cost money to produce. So the more you can subscribe and participate, the better I am able to continue producing this. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next week.